Hi everyone, it's Alex, and today I'm here to review Artful by Ali Smith. This is actually a collection of 4 lectures that Smith has given, and they're all concerned with her own writing and the writing of others, with people like E.M. Forster and Virginia Woolf. Although interwoven within these lectures is also a story that Ali Smith is concocting about this narrator that's being haunted by a ghost who turns out to be one of her past lovers. And I'm assuming that this story, it doesn't feel out of place. I think it's actually working quite well being in between these lectures, that the lectures that Smith is giving is a demonstration of the story that she's also making. Some of the themes of these lectures include on time and on form with writing, and how those two things among the 4 really affect Smith's own writing. And with writing also comes reading, and I believe it's Smith's character in this sort of interwoven story that's sort of obsessed with Oliver Twist. And I think Smith reminds us how lonely reading can be, and also our habits of possibly rereading. And I'm definitely someone that rereads Ali Smith in particular, mainly because when I seem to have my first go around with her works, I have a bit of trouble, but then whenever I come back to them, I feel like I understand them and look at them a lot differently now that I have the full scope of the story. Artful is my 5th Ali Smith that I've read, and I've noticed a big pattern where it seems like Smith loves to have these characters that seem like unlikely combinations. They're usually in pairs of 2, and it's always about things like the past and the future, and that's why in particular with the On Time lecture in here, I really loved that one. Ali Smith does talk about Alfred Hitchcock, and in particular how Hitchcock is such a signature artist and director, and it's like when she's talking about these visual images, unlike reading, which the visuals are all up to our imagination, it's almost like this mirroring takes place where we know on one hand we're objectively looking at the art in question, but then we also sort of have to wonder, the second part of it is, what do we think our response to that art is? And I think Ali Smith knows in particular with time, that time is so important in affecting how we absorb stories, or in the larger scheme of things, art in general. Whether that's Ali Smith talking about, for example, people going to see a movie in a theater and then leaving the theater either thinking things like, man, that was good, or talking to someone that they may have seen it with. That's why I love this connection in the end whenever the narrator of this brief story we're given is sitting alone, I think, and then Ali Smith makes it known that this person's alone and then just says to the wind her thoughts on Oliver Twist, even though no one's really there to listen to her. And then immediately that made me think of BookTube, actually, because in the actuality of things, or reality, right now I'm like talking by myself to no one, and then you guys might be watching this, listening to me, so there's also that sense of mirroring. And reading Ali Smith's stories, talking about those again, and thinking of her characters, I also definitely think there's that very large emphasis on mirroring with her characters. In Autumn, whether it be this, I think if I even remember it, about this girl who has an old neighbor that she doesn't know what really happened to him, and then it's also from the neighbor's perspective. And How to Be Both, you could also talk about how George is in relation to this Renaissance painter from a long time ago. And even with Girl Meets Boy, where Ali Smith contributed to the Canongate Myth series, doing a retelling of this myth in particular, a lot of that, our power with storytelling, I think, is very important to Ali Smith, and she loves to bend time in particular, and I think it's so much fun every time I read her. To me, reading Ali Smith is a lot like when I'm reading something actively, and then there's the book, and then there's me. I think Ali Smith's stories are always in that space in between, and they're never things I can really articulate, but if anyone has a better grasp on Smith's works, I would love to hear them, because I know it takes me a good couple times to feel like I appreciate them fully. That being said, with Artful, I did like this a lot more than I thought I would, because I think there's been like a lot of negative reviews around this one. I don't think it's a great place at all to start with Ali Smith. I would wait until you've maybe read a bit more of her works. I think Smith is always great at pushing the envelope, and I think she's one of the really good writers of our time right now. But I feel like, again, what seems to be holding her back, or what she seems to restrain from getting a much, I think, larger audience, is her sense of holding back and making sure that the stories feel like, without a better way of describing it, makes sense. All in all, I would rather have a reading experience where I was more so confused or always questioning or thinking a lot, rather than reading something I felt like was a good story but didn't really make me think at all. If you read Artful by Ali Smith, or any Ali Smith, and just any of it by her. I would love to know what you think. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.